that's here. And I really am just so heartwarmed that the room is full. You never know with these things, you know, that there's going to be anybody here, and everybody shows up. And it's such a great thing to be able to talk about love. Susanna, by the way, I want to say thank you to Susanna. She is here voluntarily with BCACC, BC Clinical Counsellors Association, and she's one of the coordinators that's inviting people to come and speak, and me being one of those people. So thank you, Susanna.
You're very welcome.
And I'm speaking into a mic so that she can pick this up with her tape. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for coming, and you'll notice on your seat, I should say, by the way, I'm Joanne Weiler. That would be a good start. And I always get a little bit nervous before I start these things, and then once I get going, I'm fine. So help me out here. First, before we start, I just want to check in with everybody that's here, and it's also helpful for me to ground for that. So I just want you to notice that you're sitting in a chair right now. And just notice your bum on the chair and how it feels. Hey, Julie, there's some spots up here. And I want you just to notice your hands and how your hands are feeling right now. Are they warm? Are they cool? Tingly? And I just want you to notice your back and how your back is feeling sitting in the chair. And let's just take a deep breath in. Do you know that just by breathing, you stimulate part of your brain that actually calms you down. So I'm going to take a deep breath in. I'm going to say breathe in and breathe out. Yeah, good. So welcome tonight. It's really nice to have everybody here, and I hope to share some ideas with you about love. And it's interesting today, I had permission with my client to mention this story to you, to share the story. She had some homework to go out and sign herself up on a dating site. She has been single for a year. It's time. Her husband had passed away a year prior, and it was really time for her to kind of make a move and just get herself into the dating world, and she thought that that would be a great way to start. And so she took this upon her to, get out there, and she signed up for one of the dating websites, and what happened is that, I guess, she started getting these smiles and things like that, and she just noticed, just a kind of a reservation in that she just was not ready to be on a dating site yet, and not ready to kind of move forward. And we had a bit of a laugh about it, because it was really telling for her and really enlightening to know that she's not there yet. She hasn't really got herself released from the grief of her husband who had passed away. And that's why we're here. Whether you've gone through a separation, a divorce, or whether you are grieving somebody that you've lost in your life, it takes time, and it takes really conscious intention to kind of move through a process of the grief, and that can take as long as it takes you. There's not one formula for it. You could say, let's say 1 month for every year you were together. You could make up your own formula, but there's no one formula for how long it will take you to move through the grief process. But what you got to know is that we all go through it, because everyone in this room has gone through a breakup, probably a few breakups in their life. And if I asked you right now, how many breakups have you ever gone through, you'd probably tell me like 10, 12, And so with every one of those breakups, your heart takes a bit of a hit. And what I want to help you with today is how do you kind of take those experiences and integrate learning about yourself. So what you're doing is you're actually incorporating a strength from having had the experience, focusing on you. And you can't just do that. You can't just like close the door and just say, I'm going to do that. It does take, conscious strategies to get there. So I want to help you with that tonight. I also want to keep this really informal, so please feel free to ask me questions. If there's things that are specific to you that you just want a little bit more information about, please feel free to do that. Really welcome that. So today is about learning to love again. I wrote a book called Breakup, Breakthrough, and Learning to Love Again, and I'm going to have it republished. If anybody knows a publisher local, I'm going to republish it to say Learning to Love Again, because it's really about that. It's really how do we actually take the pain and the hardness of the breakup and actually incorporate strength and resiliency and expand our hearts. So that's what I'm going to help you with tonight. And so, so what I want you to do, I asked you to fill out that slip of paper, your two strengths. Take your two strengths, just that one page. I want you to turn to the person beside you and tell them about those two strengths, okay? Just to get started. So, introduce yourself and just tell them your two strengths. You had to trade your strengths with the person beside you, that they actually could identify with your strengths in themselves as well. Yeah, isn't that incredible? And it is just amazing. We always think of ourselves as being so unique and so private in the things that we experience about ourselves, but in actual fact, we are all in this together in this world. That slip of paper that you're holding is actually, I was just fortunate to find a pad that actually is supporting kids getting education in Africa, the program Me to We. And so it's really, it is about that. It's also about the heart, right? This is about me to we. We all go through these changes in our lives and relationships. And it's as we discover that there is something about me that's just like you, that it makes it safe to get out there and start rediscovering love again. And it is until you kind of start to really connect with those parts of ourselves and realize that they are just exactly like the other person. Maybe not exactly, but pretty much like that. Then all of a sudden you start to feel comfortable in this world of ours. What happens though when you go through a breakup, you get a ton of anxiety, right? And I want to tell you that it's really interesting. Do you know that 33%, according to Brené Brown's studies, 33% of all people in this room have had some shaming experience about failure. 33%, it's incredibly high. And I mean, I can think of moments in my childhood where I felt that sense of failure. And it's quite common. I'm sure probably most people can sort of think of something. Well, 33% of you I know can. Think of something, a time in school where you really got shamed for failure. And I think that's part of why when a breakup happens, we go to a sense of failure, and it makes it so darn tough. Because that stress that happens from failure means that our heart shuts down, our whole bodies get into adrenaline rushes and heart racing and panic and all of these things, and you isolate and you do what we would do in a time of war, right? Because you're at war trying to kind of maintain your existence with all this failure about a breakup. And that's including whether or not you've actually had a loss as well. There's a bind in, if your partner passed away, the same sort of thing, right? It's like there's this bind in that, I mean, it's not their fault they passed away, but what's happened is you're left, you know? So there's a real, it's a tough thing that we really, until we kind of realize that there is that human connection with all of us and that we all go through these things, it kind of brings down our anxiety. And that's sort of, well, that is the most important first step in your process. Feel your grief, connect with others, talk about it just as you did right now. Talk about stuff, because the more you talk, the more you will realize that connection and that safety. And that grief of yours has a chance to actually process. So here's the thing, it's really interesting. With the male and female brain, it's really, by the way, great to see guys in the room. Yay. It's harder, grief is actually harder on men because of the way the brain processes one thing at a time. And so, you know, when you're in grief, you are really in grief and it feels really overwhelming. Whereas women actually have more lateral access. Your brain has kind of got a division, the corpus callosum, and there's like connections here. And what happens is that with women, you can actually integrate you know, a whole sort of picture, but with men, when they're in grief, they are just really sunk in grief. It's harder because they are they have one thought at a time. So, but in any case, but in talking, and the other thing too, women tend to talk more with each other. I imagine probably the guys that are in the room probably do talk. They have got their guy friends, and it's really nice to see. But lots of guys hold their fears and their experiences privately, whereas women tend to be naturally a little bit more social, and the brain is actually a social part of our body. It's very social. We need each other. We actually really do need each other. And so in talking, you'll find out that you can actually learn in the experience of love. You can stay open. I like these acronyms because you'll remember this. You can value what you're going through and value yourself. And then, of course, the only way we get to enlightenment is actually through relationships, right, and learning about ourselves. Because otherwise, you can't learn unless you've got a sort of some kind of irritant, you know, somebody that's going to mirror back to you what's going on for them. So we only learn in relationship. It's really difficult to do that without actually having the practice partner to work it through. So that's my acronym, LOVE, learning, opening, valuing, and enlightening. And then guess what? This is going to be the end result from today. You're going to fly, forever loving you. Anyways, so moving along. That's where I'm taking you. Right. So isn't that gorgeous? So tonight I'm going to talk about I'm going to go through 3 different parts so you know where we're going, okay? We're on this journey together. I separated it into close the door. How do you do that? Go through the grief process. And then how do you learn about you so you're going into a sense of integrating wholeness again. And then how do we get to when the new door opens and you are ready to love? And that's the fun part. We're going to talk about dating, sex, intimacy, and all that good stuff. So, and envisioning your new life, values-based, and bringing out the best in you. So, by the way, I just want to remind you that tonight, if you do volunteer, like questions or things like that, Susanna is taping. You're not on tape, okay? So that you know you're anonymous here, okay? Just want to let you know. At first, when this happens, as I mentioned, you have this burst of anxiety, and basically, you know, all the feelings that you've got will you'll fluctuate at different stages and different sort of feelings. They're all normal. You know, how many people here have gone through a breakup in the last year? Or had a loss? Yeah, in the last year?
Welcome.
And how many have gone through one in the last 3 months? Okay. And the last month? Okay, welcome. And within the last 2 years? Yeah, okay. Nice to have you here. And, 12 years ago, 13 years ago. And I have to say, my husband, we just celebrated 8 years of marriage in August, so he's here tonight, so nice to have you here, Joe. Anyway, so it's all normal, and I think that's part of it. As I mentioned, talking to others, you'll discover that, we all go through this. We've all gone through, if you count from childhood to now, you're going to have lots of breakups, and probably maybe a few more. So let's get good at them. First of all, how do you close the door? And I put flowers there because we've all kind of woken up in the morning with those swollen eyes and you can't see out of your eyes. Anybody? Yeah, nod. Well, anyways, how do you kind of reframe that? First, you've got to, first of all, clear the reminders that are giving you the constant pulling back to what was and the longing, and actually go through a conscious process of grieving. So the first part is, writing out. I've got an exercise called the 3 R's, and I really recommend. So what you do is you look at what are your best parts of the relationship, because you have dedicated a certain amount of time to your relationship, and that's precious time, and it's not been all bad, right? You want to be able to hold on to that time. So you go through your remembrances and think about the things that you really appreciate about your time together. And that's really an important part of it, so that you don't kind of have a sense that you're just going to cut off from that part of your life, because all of that is actually feeding you and who you are today, if you could have that ease. But if you're staying stuck in resentment, which is also important to write out, the second R is resentment. You need to write out your resentments. Like, what do you really resent about your partner and the way that they let you down? And write a list, and and you may have to do this a bunch of times, and share it with a friend, and even ideally share it with your former partner. So when you go through that, you have a sense of closure. One of the hardest things is actually feeling complete in an ending relationship. And until you actually feel complete in the relationship, it's hard not to drag these histories along and be fearful of trusting again. And so writing out a list of resentments, you just let yourself just write it off the page, or a few pages. And then regrets are really important as well. To write out the things that you really regret about how you showed up in the relationship. We're all in a process of getting better, and we want to approach life in that attitude. I would not profess, this is my career, this is what I do, but I don't know it all. For sure, I'm learning still. In the Buddhist faith, they say that if you see the Buddha, you should stomp on him, because you don't want to ever feel that you've actually arrived. You want to continue to learn throughout your lifetime. And if you're not learning, why be here, So, and in fact, it's interesting, this research that was done on rats were quite similar. And anyway, they had a pad on this table, and they released this rat to a food source. Has anybody heard this research before? They released this rat to this food source, and there was an electric shock pad that was over by where the food was, and they shocked the rat. Well, just one shock, the rat would not come back to the food source ever. And so they tried to coax the rat to come back to the food source with even cocaine to get this rat to come and eat from this food source. It would not go there, even having been shocked just one time. And the only thing that would bring it back to eat food, because they turned the pad off, the only thing that brought it back was another rat. So letting another rat go out and see that the rat eat from the food source and not be shocked, then it would actually trust to go back to the food source. And it's telling for us about relationships, right? That it is only through relationships that we can learn to recover from loss of trust or heal from pain, and actually it's in the relationship that we learn how to be again. So loss of trust in ourselves or in someone else, loss of so it's having that experience, and so relationships is it. I'm telling you, you're going to have to get there. But you can't just get there, and it does take time. So doing those lists, sharing it with your partner is a really good approach to have. And if that's not possible, I would really recommend to write letters, that you're not going to send. You can write letters. Did anybody ever see Message in a Bottle? I love that movie. It's so dear. And if you haven't seen it, it's about a man who's grieving the loss of his wife who passed away, and he just can't approach life again. And he writes letters to his wife, and he throws them off in a bottle, and these bottles get found and becomes the storyline of his healing. And it's such a lovely thing, actually, and it's kind of a nice thing. But with my client this morning, I suggested she write letters to her former husband. And every morning, just write a story about what's going on, what she's feeling, just little things. And after a while, she'll probably notice that she's not writing them anymore. She's forgotten for a week. And so you can grieve even when you haven't had when you don't have the person with you. If they've passed away and they're not in physical form anymore, you can still go through that grief process. Or if your former partner is unwilling to meet you at the table to talk about what's going on, that's a way that you can get around that. So, but writing is really helpful, and then actually sharing with a friend or talking to somebody or seeing a counselor is a great option, great way to go as well. So, so get your supports, right away, like as much as you can. I mean, the inclination will be to isolate yourself. Whenever we feel pain, we naturally close up and withdraw, and you have to fight that impulse, because it's just it's your self-talk and all the negativity and the resentment will take over, and you won't be able to move yourself through any other kind of perspective except for just immersing in this dark place. And so get your supports out, because they can actually hold you accountable. They can also hold you. They can also be just reflective with you and hearing your story and validating. They've known you through time, they love you. So it's a sense of constancy. Your family as well, just having them around you as much as possible will really help as well. And I've put down, change your Facebook status. It's funny how we've got to kind of keep track of media, social media now. And how many times you have single or together or whatever. Anyway, all of those things are important too. And if you find yourself wanting to sort of check up, secretly, what is your partner doing? Just don't go there. That's actually quite typical too. Does anybody relate to that? Totally. Yeah. So just really manage yourself, and you can actually move through this. Yeah. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Can you review the 3 R's? I missed the first one.
So remembrances. I'm a big believer in start with a positive. So, and forcing yourself to write a list of remembrances. I know that's hard to do, and some of you are going to go, there are no good things about our time together. And that's so natural and normal. But really, kind of go through your photo album and really train yourself into remembering that, because that softening will be really important and healthy for you. As you'll find out later in the presentation, it puts your body in a much healthier state. That stress and anxiety of maintaining the poison really is a deficit to you and to everybody else around you. And so you really are encouraged by that first part, the remembrances, because you'll naturally go to good memories and hold that. And then regrets are the things that are about me, like what I wish I had done differently. There's always, you should have at least 10 things on the page. And then, let me see, remembrances, regrets, and resentments, thank you. I even have a hard time saying that. It's hard to resent. You can tell I'm a sunny-side-up person. Anyway, but resentments are important too. You've got to get that anger out, right? It's otherwise going to, turn up as anxiety. You've heard that before, and then anxiety leads to depression, right? So you really do want to get those resentments out as well. And whether you actually let that person know, or whether you just keep it to yourself or share it with a friend, that's, that's all good. Okay, so the 3 R's. Yeah, but the truth is, actually, it's true. And a girlfriend said to me, and we're jogging along the seawall, she said to me, but you know, the truth is, we all want to find somebody, and I think that is absolutely true. We are social beings, our brain is social, we're meant to be, in partnership. But before we can actually get there to be in healthy partnership, we've really got to heal ourselves and really have that whole self that we're coming back to a new relationship. Otherwise, you'll just be dragging along this big bag of resentments that you've never actually processed and grieved from, and you'll be bonking that next person over the head with those resentments, because the tendency is it's a trauma, really, going through a breakup, really. It's a bit of a trauma, and if you notice yourself very reactive with other people, that's because you haven't processed the trauma. So, anyway, that's important. So, it's like Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief. It is like that. You do go through these stages, and there's a sliding back and forth, and you may find yourself, some days feeling like, okay, I get this, it's fine, I'm moving on, I feel good. And then you'll next day wake up and feel just like crap and, really angry, and you're not really sure why. Has anybody noticed a sliding back and forth? Yeah. Does anybody want to say anything about that?
2 steps forward, 1 step back.
Yeah, snakes and ladders, I always say. I love that game, right? It's like, yeah. Yeah, and how do you handle the slide back down?
I allow myself to feel it and welcome it, and then just move on to the next day.
Yeah, nice. And yeah, just being in acceptance with it. That's, yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Anybody else? What do you do when you slide back down? You're kind of moving forward. You think that you're kind of through it, and then you have that slide back down?
Also go running.
It's kind of like running?
We go running, run it off.
Oh, running, yeah, like exercises. Yeah, the best. Yeah. Okay, so then there are those times when you think, okay, I really have got to kind of like turn inward and get myself, back on track. I've got to ground myself. And so here's just some tools that are just a great way to go. Tapping. Oxytocin, by the way, is one of the best discoveries of the last, 5 or so years, when it's really become very important. And oxytocin is the attachment hormone that is produced for breastfeeding, for women, for dilating, for deliveries, but men actually produce it as well, although you probably haven't delivered a baby, but but you do produce oxytocin. And so oxytocin is the attachment hormone that makes you feel secure and confident and calm. And it's interesting, there's a gal by the name of, I can't remember her name now. Anyways, I can tell you that later. But she did a research project on people who she gave oxytocin through a nasal spray, and Carlisle is her name. And she did this research project on people, and she gave them a nasal spray of oxytocin, and what she found is their ability to become more trusting went up by 30%. So the oxytocin hormone will help you start to heal. It also helps reduce the anxiety that actually is kind of a repellent. It kind of keeps people away. So, we know this by research, and so you can actually produce oxytocin tapping. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So I'm going to put this down, and I'm going to get you to, put your hands on your knees, okay? And the oxytocin is actually produced through your skin. So it's activated by your skin through a hug, through sex. And, sadly, when you're single, that's not happening all that much, right? So we got to look at other things. Massages produces oxytocin. Anyway, hands on your legs here. And I just want you to alternate tapping pretty firmly on your legs. Keep the tapping going. And I know it's a workout for your forearms. Hang in there. A little workout. Okay, now hold your hands in place. And you'll feel a kind of like warm sensation through your legs. Do you feel it? Almost like a little buzzing in your hands. That's oxytocin. Cool, huh? And guess what? You're a little bit calmer. Another way you can do it is with your hands across your chest, and the same sort of thing, alternate tapping. This is a great thing for anxiety. it's really a great way to kind of bring your anxiety down. Just alternate tapping, and just keep the tapping going, and then just hold your hands there, and you'll feel that kind of warm feeling through your chest and even up into your face. Oxytocin. It's all about oxytocin. The next thing is thought field therapy. You can look up online, but it's based on 7 meridians of your body. You can do this tapping. I'm not going to go through it all right now, but it's something maybe to look up online if you wanted to learn how to do that. Basically tapping here, here, there, outside of your hand, and then pressing here. But anyway, you can look that up. And meditation is, we know now that vitamin D is one of the things that's going to keep you cancer-free and healthy through your life. It's absolutely, if there's one thing you take in a vitamin, it's vitamin D. And we also know now through science that meditation is just like that. I mean, we used to think that meditation was sort of that fringe thing for the hippie culture or something. Now meditation is like so important and probably should be part of every day. The way we wake up, the way we go to sleep, meditate a little bit. And when you do that, you lengthen telomeres in your body so that you actually can handle stress better. So, and meditation is not complicated. It's just, breathing. You can just do it by simply breathing. We did a bit of a mindful meditation at the beginning of the session today, thinking about how your hands feel. You can actually just go top to bottom, do a meditation, and just close your eyes and turn inward. DanSiegel.com, if you look his website up, he's got a wheel of awareness that I would totally recommend. It's a wonderful meditation. It'll take you through sort of these hubs of awareness, and it's a wonderful way to meditate as well. So meditation, aromatherapy is really very mainstream as well now. We know now that aromatherapy really does make a difference. What happens is with aromatherapy, it actually connects to the limbic brain. It bypasses the anterior lobe, so you actually get an immediate fix on calming yourself down. So lavender, ylang ylang. We have a massage therapist here tonight. Sandy, do you want to say, are there special ones that you recommend?
Well, first I'd recommend Young Living oils. They're the best oils that I've ever come across, and you can get them online. They're really good because they're pure. They have no alcohol resins in them or anything. They're made strictly from the plant itself, and they're the best. So I highly recommend.
So anyway, make a stop to get yourself some, if you so inclined, you might want to pick up some of those things. And running is, running or hiking or something that gives you 20 minutes of cardio is a really good way to kind of get your brain right. So just, you were saying about running. It was absolutely something that was totally life-saving for me, actually, in the process of my own breakup. Yeah, and you're going, yeah. I know, it's anything that is going to give you some cardio, so it could be cycling, anything that gets you sweating is what you want to do for 20 minutes. And, talking to your friends, I mentioned, get some therapy. Massage is a great way to go. The other thing too is, it's interesting, like sociality is the sense that we are meant to be in groups, so as much as you can, try to join some groups. Being a part of a group like the North Shore Athletics, if you're living on the North Shore, is a really great running group. You might join, and it really doesn't cost much, right? I mean, it's just, or come here to the community center, where you can go to community fitness for $6, I think it is. So, there's definitely, there's just so many avenues, and in that way, you're naturally doing the things that you like to do. You're going to meet other people. And it is really refreshing to meet new people as well. Putting yourself in new situations give you a chance, like a break from the grief, Sometimes you might not want to talk about, the 3 R's, just want to be me for an hour. And so going to a group situation can really be helpful. and time with your family. Do you know there's research that says that just if you've got kids, has anybody here got kids? Yeah, me too. Do you know that just being in the presence of your children actually changes your brain in a positive way? And so, no matter what stage your kids are at, it does. So, spend time with your kids. And it's interesting, oftentimes what I see is some people are so wanting to, get on the hunt to meet somebody. They're actually out there kind of trying to meet somebody rather than actually really healing and being with your kids, which the more time you spend with the kids, the better you are and the better your kids are. So we want to work on the whole system, right? And move gradually, steadily ahead. And in that way, everybody is doing a lot better. But just the physical presence of your kids actually has a positive impact to your brain. So interesting. And journal. I'm a firm believer in journaling. It doesn't, a lot of people, if you've got kind of performance anxiety, you might be afraid to put things on the page. Does anybody relate to that? Like, what can I write? Yeah, it's, you kind of have this journal, you might tear off the first 5 pages thinking, oh, I can't write that. And it's really helpful even just to notice that. But this is your best friend, your journal. You could write anything. You saw Bridget Jones' diary? Do you remember that scene when she's written her journal and all through the, angry times and everything like that? She's put everything down there, and then her boyfriend of choice, and again, this lovely man, grabs her journal and she thinks she's being discovered for all the slagging she's done in the journal, and he goes to buy her a new journal. But anyways, journaling is a great thing for men and women. I would just absolutely recommend it. And when you journal, write on the one side what you're feeling today, and then come back and leave the right side of the page blank, and then come back to it a week later and see how your feelings about that thing has changed. Because that's really interesting too. It's helpful if you tend to get anxiety, to get that perspective. You'll start to realize, like, wow, I really was so worried about that thing, and now it's such a non-issue for me. And so little by little, you're actually training yourself to not sweat the small stuff, and or maybe pay attention to the small stuff. So get yourself in shape. The biggest thing that happens when you're, just out of a relationship is that the sense of not having control. Anybody feel like a lack of control? Yeah. And so what you do for your body, you really do have control of, and you're really going to get the results from. So it's kind of like cleaning out a drawer is really helpful too. But getting yourself in shape and sort of focusing on your fitness is something you're going to totally get return on. And then your brain starts to realize, like, I really do have control. And then the healing again, the less anxiety, the better you're going to do. So, and when you're there, keep your head up and meet some people. So, yeah. Okay, so, yes. How many people have trouble with anger? I know. Whether you have trouble hearing it or expressing it, it's not the emotion of choice for any of us. But in fact, anger is a really intimate part of our emotional world. And we've got to get good at it, good at it, being able to express it and also receive it, as long as it's not, said in, you're bonking your partner or you're bonking somebody else with it. You're actually saying it in a way that is expressing a vulnerability that's underneath anger. And I love Thich Nhat Hanh's metaphor that you could think of anger like a crying child. And as a crying child is in front of you, you would actually not probably mini lecture the crying child. You wouldn't tell the child not to cry, or that it, all the reasons why it's not reasonable to be crying. And you wouldn't throw the child against the wall. And you wouldn't walk away from the child. What you would do is you'd naturally hold the child. And so we should think of anger in that same way, to hold it, to sort of really, and it's not like you can go up to somebody when they're angry and go, oh, but let me give you a hug. I get it. Or that you can do that as well. But, what I mean is emotionally embrace it, hold it. I've got a diagram up the front there, and it's really, my diagram is actually one of the reasons that we get so stuck on this process of anger is that when we're growing up, we're trained into being subjective about who we are. So we're only as good as our teachers tell us. We get an A, we're brilliant. We get a D, we're a failure. And all of that, again, you've got friends, you're in. If you've got a good hair day, you're beautiful. If you do well at sports, you're athletic. And all of these things are so subjective. And so our brain and thinking is really trained into this subjective world. And so, everything coming from the outside in, you're in a very vulnerable situation. Because if the information coming in is negative, guess what? There's a hole in your heart. And so what happens is that you're really stuck in this sense of like, I don't want to be wrong, right? And I'm going to really react. And so what happens if somebody is critical and angry with you, you think, oh God, I'm an amoeba. You can't even hear the person because you're in an anxiety state. This is where you're at. And so you're on this roller coaster ride in relationships. Like when someone's angry with you, you are down here feeling just awful about yourself. And here, when they're like happy with you and they think you're wonderful, then you feel wonderful. But this kind of thing is going to wear out any relationship, and it'll definitely wear you out. So that sense of riding the roller coaster is the sense that we're building ourselves based on others. Whereas what you want to do is start to think of yourself from an internal place, and so checking in with your body, how do I feel in the context of this other person, and if somebody's angry with me, I want to be empathic with their experience, but not take it so personally. Yes, I can consider if there's something for me to really be thinking about here that I need to get better at, because I told you before, I'm imperfect, I'm getting better, hopefully all my life. But I'm not going to go on the roller coaster ride with the person. So I can actually say, wow, that's really hard. I can see how that was really upsetting for you. And at the same time, not be on that roller coaster to prove that person wrong. And so what I suggest is to say to yourself, am I defending myself? Then you've got big time anger, and you guys, it's exhausting. And you're at risk. Or am I defining myself? If I'm defining myself, I'm up here. Well, I would say something like, it's really hard to hear that right now. I could see I've really let you down, and I could see how upset you are. Tell me more about it. So I'm going to define, like, it feels hard to hear this right now, but I really want to hear what's going on for you. And that changes everything, because the person kind of feels, oh, okay, so I matter to you. So even though this thing has happened, you actually want to hear about it. And guess what? It heals. So your experience, you're building an attachment with the person, and the relationship can deepen. Because anger is actually really intimate. It's just that, our ancestors used to use clubs and things when they got angry. And that's just not okay. But if we're kind of thinking in this way, it really does change things, right? And so, in actual fact, you'll find yourself feeling, a greater sense of love for the person. And so being right, being invested in being right, you absolutely lose. But, if you actually sort of start to ask questions, you'll start to realize a lot more intimate, deeper relationship with the other person. And you need to figure this out, or else you're just going to repeat this pattern in your next relationship. So you've got to get a mastery in anger. I would recommend everybody work at it, just experience it, express it, do your resentments. And really hear the way you've let the other person down. Really hear it. Try to be present for them. And so the other thing is that anger, people who are internal processors tend to be more predisposed to anxiety and sort of holding anger in. And people who are external processors tend to be damaging sometimes because they'll just be saying whatever's on their mind. So you really want to learn how to self-regulate. So self-regulation means that I'm actually a master of myself, of my emotion. So I want to kind of do like 5 big breaths before I say anything, right? So just take a deep breath and breathe out, right? I could do that 5 times. Or I might do the tapping exercise that we did. That would be another great way to regulate. And then after, come back to the conversation, but ask yourself first, like, what just happened to me? Like, why am I upset? What's important about this thing that happened? And then express it from like, I really felt let down when blah, blah, blah. But anyway, you need to practice these things, otherwise it is going to repeat the next time around. So there definitely are healthier ways.
Fancy crust.
So, turn the person beside you. Actually, I'm going to get you, first of all, just to wake up. Stand up. You got to move a bit. So I want you to pretend that you are that person that just How was that? Kind of nice to move a bit. But you get the idea, right? It's in your body, right? When you're pushing, we do that, right? We get so invested in having you right, especially when you're moving forward for breakup. Because guess what? Remember that vulnerability I was talking about? It's just, it feels like you have, failed. So of course you want to be right. And that's what it kind of looks like energetically. It's just pushing. It's like you're pushing a wall, which is just so unhealthy for you and unhealthy for the other person. So it's just, food for thought. Next thing that happens, anybody feel guilty? Yeah? Tell me about guilt. Somebody, come on.
Sorry.
Okay.
I have a very guilty complex personality. I just feel
Were you Catholic?
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I was this little girl that's
I
just
know.
installed in me.
Yeah. It's it's and you received your hand up too?
Yeah, I was raised Catholic.
Yeah.
Cut it right off at 18.
I know, yeah. It's, it is really hard to hurt somebody else, right? And so I think that's part of it is when we go through this learning process of relationships, right? It's really hard to have caused someone else pain. And we would never intentionally do that, right? But we do. And just by stepping outside every morning, chances are going to hurt somebody's feelings without intending it and without a conversation. But in relationships, oftentimes we tend to really focus on the thing we've done wrong, and it's really hard to let that go. You're nodding your head back there. Do you relate? Yeah. And, it's so hard to be kind to ourselves and really embrace the learning, because we do have, guess what? We've got those strengths that you wrote down at the beginning of the session tonight. But guess what? We've also got those things that we're working on. Did you have you got that slip that's got the 2 things you're working on? It's kind of why we're here, right? Those 2 things that we're working on. I just want you to, can you just throw out a few things that you got on your list? What have you got that you're working on? Insecurity, yeah. Yeah, and so how does insecurity show up for you in a relationship?
Feeling of low self-worth.
Yeah, and
That's not deserving happiness.
yeah. Anybody relate to insecurity? Yeah, me too. Yeah, thanks. Anybody else? What's on your list? Anybody want to throw out something?
Withdrawing.
Courage. That's something you're working on, is courage. And so sometimes you don't feel courage. Yeah, okay.
Being happy with yourself before you can be happy with someone else.
Yeah, being happy with yourself. So wanting to feel just like that whole circle inside out. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's hard in this process, right, to kind of get back there. Yeah, I know. Anybody relate to that? Yeah, and so somebody else said something in the back?
Withdrawing.
Withdrawing, yeah. Just the tendency to withdraw, and when you withdraw, right, you can't resolve anything, and it, there's a sense of failing and not sort of talking through things. And guess what? If you don't talk about it, you're going to repeat it again. So we've all got those things, those areas to be working on, and so why are we so feeling guilty and we can't talk about it? It's the only way we actually get better is actually talking about it, and that's how you get over guilt. So if you've got some of those things that are just, really, pressing on your spirit, talk about it with a friend or go see somebody for counseling and and start to let it go, because what you'll find is that everybody has those feelings. You know, we all feel guilty about something. It's, you know, kind of, in some ways it's helpful because it helps us do better in life, because it motivates us because we don't want to feel guilty. But it's also kind of like this, you know, feeling and emotion that kind of sucks, actually. Because when you feel guilty, it just brings all your energy, your creativity goes down because you are in a negative frame. So you really want to kind of process that and work through it. And so, yeah, again, there are differences in the male and the female brain and how you process guilt too, right? Again, that one thing at a time process for the male brain as opposed to the lateral thinking for female brain. So it really is important to talk about it. And yeah, sorry, it's 85% of all men and women. I said 33, I think, before.
I thought so too. I was like,
wait a minute. So 85% of all men and women have had some shaming experiences of failing in childhood. Sorry, Brady Brown. Anyway, so yeah, 85% of us, yeah, that actually sounds way more.
Yeah.
And I tend to usually exaggerate, so what's happening? Yeah, so 85% of us, you know, and so that's also where shame comes from. It's, I shouldn't have failed. Really? Of course I'm going to fail. It's the only way I get better at things, and the only way I get better at life. And so from a young child on, you know, life is about a discovery. We're going to screw up. And it's the only way we can learn is actually making those mistakes. So why aren't we talking about it? Anyway, tools to move forward. Have closure with your former partner. One of the hardest things is actually staying in the conversation until you both feel complete. Sometimes one person feels complete and the other one doesn't. So make sure you actually have that line, like in a conversation at the end of it, say, I am complete. And listen to your partner say, I am complete. Try to get that closure, because otherwise what you haven't processed is going to really drag along behind you into the next relationship, and it just makes you complicated. You know, you'll just be on guard for that happening again with the next person. You'll probably choose some of the same kinds of traits in the next person so you can kind of work it out, and that's just a lot of hard work and pain. And if we're smart and if we go through this, we actually can integrate and get better. So, and you can use a journal, a list as well to move forward. If you're really stuck in that last frame of guilt, you know, use your journal to write out a list of all your irrational beliefs about all these negative things about yourself, and then force yourself to write down in the next list the opposite, and how you're getting better at that thing. So you're actually taking the things that you feel you didn't do well and doing something about it, rather than just feel terrible about it. Just get better at that thing. You know, whatever it was that you failed at before, then just become expert at that now. So that's going to become your strength.
what are the percentages of that you can have closure with your partner? Because most men, when it's over, that's closure for them. They don't want to discuss all that. So what are the chances of having closure?
Right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and you know what, I think that's really changing, and I think some women as well just won't have closure either, like that. It's actually, you can only do, as I say, if the person's not up to have closure with you, then I would really recommend that you journal, write letters, do the message in the bottle kind of thing, create a ritual for yourself so you can actually, or talk to your friends or see a counselor, like anything like that to kind of process it. But yeah, don't just leave it at that. Yeah. And take your time, right? There's lots of time in life, right? You don't have to re-engage with the next partner right away. Take your time, pace yourself. So you really understand what went wrong, right? Everybody uses that phrase, water under the bridge. It's all water under the bridge. Yeah, but you can actually learn quite a bit in that water. So swim around in it a little while, right? Like spend some time really thinking about, what you have learned. And but don't keep blaming yourself for all the negatives. Really try to also balance this with some of the positives, the things that you've done well in the relationship. I think we tend to kind of not do that enough. We really should really practice, appreciating ourselves, being grateful for who we are. Yeah. What were some of the strengths that you guys had? Come on.
I loved him completely.
You love completely.
To the best of my ability at that time, I loved him completely.
Oh, that's so lovely.
Yeah.
Nice. Can you say more about that? There's,
I was very much, I can't, no.
okay, thank you. You were very, very present in the relationship. Yeah. Nice. Big heart.
Yeah.
Filling this room right now. Thank you. So, appreciating the things you've done well. Right? I think that's so important. I don't think we do that enough in our culture. So the next thing is getting into integration. How do I integrate learning and sort of become stronger and more whole in learning about myself? And a great timeline, I had a client do this the other day, and she came in and she'd done this timeline for me as homework. So I had her kind of go through 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and each time above the line was all the men in her life, starting with her father and any kind of relationship she's had. And then below the line was all the stuff that she'd learned about men. And really fascinating, because she learned a lot from that experience. So the above the line is the significant relationship. So your father would be right on the line. Boy you had a crush on might be out here, and men are cute, right? And then you go along into 15 and you go on your first date and you've got this, really, great physical.
Mine. Neither are my children's norms mine.
Yeah.
And if some parents hug and so on, and some felt that is a display of affection that is not then or for their children to witness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting coming out of different generations, you're
Yes.
saying, and I so agree with that. And that in parents' generations, it might not have been that there was so much physical affection and hugging. And today, we're all about oxytocin, now we know. And so we're all about oxytocin. We're going to get as many hugs we can a day, it's true, and those things are important, and also across cultures. So, from one culture to the next, we actually really need to teach each other how to express love in a way that we understand in the same language. And that's Chapman's book, The 5 Love Languages. This is a really great book. I mean, it just tells us to kind of be curious, right? To stay open and curious about what the other person's learning is about love and how they experience love. So it might be that love is, for me, hugs. And for my husband, it might be making him coffee in the morning. So, it's just, it's different, and we need to just have a conversation about it. So yeah, and our body is also a great way to know if the relationship's healthy. I think we have our bodies are our greatest teacher if we pay attention to it. So the things that you can learn is that if you check in with yourself, you'll know if you're going too fast in the dating process, or if you're getting anxiety, it's maybe that you're not spending enough time on your own or with your other friends, that the intensity is going too quickly for you, and if you're feeling you're checking in with your body, you're going to know what you're feeling like. How do you feel right now? Just kind of think about it. How do you feel? What comes to mind? I've got sort of a bit of a bubbly feeling in my heart right now. I'm kind of excited, and my shoulders feel a little bit. I can pull them down a bit. How about you guys? What are you feeling right now?
Proud I'm here.
Proud you're here. Yeah, me too. Proud you're
I
here.
made it to this point.
You've made it to this point. Yeah. Nice.
Relax.
Yeah, me too. I'm proud I'm here too. Made it to this point. Relax. Nice. Okay, good. Where do you feel relaxed in your body? Where does relaxation go? In your shoulders? Good. Yeah, so just by doing that, when you do that, you actually calm yourself down. It really puts you in a state to move through the different stages of integration. So just doing that. Anxiety can be a gift. It can really teach you a lot. Anybody here had anxiety?
Yes.
Yeah. It's, and I think that's part of the breakup process, right? Because the whole, the floor has been pulled out. No wonder you feel anxious, right? And so when you feel anxiety, there's information about, you need to talk more, connect more with others, journal, get the information out that is kind of getting stuck. It's why you're getting anxiety. slow down your pace of life. I mean, it's telling you things. If you kind of spend some time with your journal, you'll be able to get your answers. But your body is their best friend, shaking you to say, pay attention to your needs and your feelings, express them.
Sometimes I feel numb when I'm going through this process. I feel numb.
You feel- Yeah, feeling numb is so true. And that actually is your way of, just like it's too much, I'm on overload, and then you get this kind of numb feeling. I've had that too, where you just feel numb. Is this really happening? Sometimes it's kind of like, is this really happening? It sort of feels, a little bit unreal. Yeah, feeling numb. So, and how do you handle that?
Well, I just get aware because it comes like a wave after, I don't know, next day or in a couple of days. It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah, a little bit like a roller coaster, yeah. And, journaling during that time, just riding that wave, doing a little bit of meditation, talking, all of those things, the tapping, those kinds of things will help. Yeah.
Another thing I just wanted to say, I don't know, are you going through a bad breakup right now? Is that?
Not right now.
Not right now, but you had, and you're just feeling the effects of that. And of course I have, and a few years ago. And I think the important thing that made me feel good was that it's completely normal to feel that way. And that everybody that goes through it feels that way. You're certainly not alone.
Yeah, and so just your body saying, take care. So massages, go for a massage. Sandra is a massage therapist. Or go see Anne at the Vitamin House and find out some vitamins that you can be taking. That's the other thing too, is that it really does make a difference to, get yourself plugged into a vitamin routine. And so, yeah, nice to have Anne here tonight from the Vitamin House. So those things really do, it's just taking care of yourself. Use this window of time to really, really hunker into some good strategies and so that you're going to stay with that forever.
And I found I was fighting all my emotions, and I just decided to accept them and embrace them and just allow myself to have grief or be sad or be depressed or whatever, and just move out of it.
Go with it.
Go with
Just
it.
accept it and just realize I'm going to feel this feeling now. Yeah, I love that. Acceptance.
Are there any vitamin deficiencies that are prone when you're going through a breakup?
Stress, so there's stress. Yeah.
B complex is the
Yeah,
most
B
important.
complex is
Yeah,
really
most- and C, yeah.
B complex, C,
Yeah, that's the
anything else,
most
Anne?
important. Well, there's different herbs.
Magnesium.
There's different herbs that'll calm you down if you're
Yeah.
feeling anxious.
And calm, if you are looking for something to help you sleep at night, calm is
Calm.
just great
Magnesium.
to help you sleep. If you're having trouble sleeping, it's just, great. Okay, the best part, dating. Getting into part 3, transformation. Now you're ready. And so, has anybody started dating again?
Yeah.
Yes.
You put me on spot already, so just want to clear the air. I'm not
Yay, how's that going?
Awesome.
Good. It's keeping a lightness of energy about the whole dating process, and knowing that, as you found out tonight, everybody feels the similar feelings that you've got and has the same weaknesses and the same strengths. We can trade up cards right now, and we can, all of you could swap cards through the whole room right now, and whatever card you'd ended up with, you probably could relate to. Every single thing that's written on every single one of those cards this year is something that we can all relate to. I'd be very, very hard pressed to say that I couldn't relate to everything that you've written on your cards right now. I could probably give you examples of me in all of those things, So don't get hung up on what happened on the last date. If you go out and you go on a dating site and you meet somebody for coffee or whatever, and it just was awkward. Anybody have those first awkward coffee dates? How did it go? Not so good.
Not so good.
Yeah, and know that that's going to happen, and you just want to really be as honest as you can, be authentic with the person you're with. You know, they probably feel awkward. If you're feeling awkward, they are too. Name it, just say it. You know, isn't this awkward? Best thing ever, just say, isn't this awkward? This is what you all say that right now. Isn't this awkward? Isn't this awkward? Because it really, you know, sometimes just saying that very thing that you feel weird about is the best thing ever. Grace is going, yeah. So, and then everything, you know, happens. We take in information in like 6-second bites. Did you know that? It's all kind of unconscious. So you decide in 6 seconds what you're gonna, whether you're gonna be feeling safe with this person, or whether you're not, whether you're gonna connect or whether you're not. You know, it's in the first 6 seconds of being with somebody. And based on familiar features, if they have familiar features to, you know, other people that you've known in your family or in your friendship circles, or even that look like you. That's why couples sometimes can look alike. Is because that, and pets as well can look like their owners. When you're walking along, you see all I often, you know, notice, you know, owners of the pets, they really look alike. Well, that's that 6-second bite, right? We actually are picking up stuff. And so, and not only is that important to recognize that, you know, you just may not have those same features that that person's, you know, picking up on that 6 seconds, or they to you, right? So it's 6 seconds we make that connection. And the other thing is that you're managing yourself when you're showing up for your date. Go for a run, do something, like stand up for a second, you guys. I love moving around. Stand up. I just want you to shake. Everybody in the room, I want you to shake every single crevice in your body before you go for your date.
Not on the date, right?
Not on the date.
I'll just tap.
Remember, don't do it on the date.
You mean your date when you're going to the soda shop and sharing a soda there? I like your picture, Joanne. It's like from the 50s. They're at the soda shop.
I know, I love that too. So, you know, when you go to your date, shake a little before you get there, because it actually puts you in a body state that you're ready to be open. It actually increases your circulation. In fact, Russian athletes are the ones that discovered this in research. That by shaking, doing that shaking, they actually are better alert and prepared for the downhill ski shoot. They do that before they take off in that race. They shake all over to get their body prepared. And in fact, it's actually really there's a whole therapy in the States. Not in Canada yet. Let me start this. Shaking therapy. There is actually shaking therapy. And you just did it. It's that simple. But you know what, there is a real benefit. It increases your circulation, it increases your brain function, and it also dispels the cortisol so that you're actually in a ready state for your date. So do a little shaking. There's a whole lot of shaking going on, right? Everybody leaving tonight. Anyway, Elvis. Okay, so the other thing too is sort of think about, like, what do I want this time? You know, use this time that you're on your own and think about, like, what's important to me? So you're not just going to be waiting to be chosen by somebody, but you're actually intentionally choosing. Like, what are some of your values? Like, what's important to you? What are your activities? What's important? You can actually choose this time. So sit back a little bit to kind of think about, you know, what exactly do I want to be doing with that love of my life 10 years from now? And what will we, and actually picture it, you know. I love, you know, the thought of just being intentional a little bit about that. Also, I love Winnie the Pooh, I gotta tell you. I can just so relate, and you know, because I think I can, you know, imagine myself as Winnie the Pooh sometimes, you know. Winnie the Pooh, in one of his stories, goes around this tree a whole bunch of times, and he's looking at the steps of the tree, and he says, oh, there's, you know, a woozle here. And he's going along with Piglet. Pardon?
Heffalump.
A heffalump, thank you. You know the story. You should come up and tell the story. Anyway, he sees these footsteps, and he's chasing the heffalump. I'm going to find the heffalump. And he's going around, and he just keeps going around this, you know, this tree, and finally he realizes, I guess, Christopher Robin shouts down from the tree to say, those are your own footprints, silly poo. Anyways, but my point in this is that when you go out there and you start the dating process, be realizing that it's you that you're taking on this walk. So be in the present, no agenda, but really knowing yourself and really feeling open and ready to have an experience with somebody who's just like you. Also, feeling maybe a little bit awkward or nervous and also a bit excited and all of those things. So at the very least, you're just going to be meeting another spirit. And so, whether it's going to lead you somewhere really fabulous or whether it's just going to be a date for the day, enjoy it. Just be in that moment. Anyways, what day is it, ask who? It's today, Squeak Piglet, my favorite day. So, and if you approach it with that kind of attitude, you will probably have a lot better experience in the process rather than, putting everything on a hunt to find that right partner. And so stay in the present. Think about the hobbies that you naturally do, and if you're doing them, that person's going to show up for you. And I think one of the biggest mistakes people do is they end up sort of morphing themselves into the style of the other person and presenting the part of them that would be a fit with that person. And then over time, that's not so groovy anymore, and the relationship falls flat. So if you could just do the things you like to do, that person's going to naturally show up, and you're going to naturally have a really great relationship. So just be yourself. And we were talking about in arriving tonight and sort of feeling like hot and sweaty from working during the day, and what will that be like? And that's what we look like at any one moment, and just being in your own spirit is the best thing you can possibly do. So so moving along into so everything that we do is communicating. Our brain is actually the whole body. Our nervous system and our brain are communicating unconsciously all the time. So that's why that shaking thing I was mentioning to you is really important, because actually we communicate with our eyes and eye contact, in the kind of not like staring somebody, someone's really intense and scary. But the way we make eye contact says that we're open and we're ready to meet somebody. And looking away, looking down is, a sense of shame or embarrassment. And, there's things that we communicate just with our eyes. And then we communicate with our shoulders, right? If we're ready and ready to start the dating process, you're standing tall, you're open in your heart, really, so your heart is literally open. And in fact, when you do these actions in your body, your nervous system regulates, and it's what's called as an open limbic system. And so your body is actually in a really healthy state, and it's very inviting for others. So breathe as well, breathing deeply through your body. Just really let yourself breathe. And that puts you in a really healthy state as well. Your foots and my foots, they express things. The way we're standing, we can actually be kind of closed off if we're kind of not feeling like we want to engage, and our legs are kind of closed off. You might be meeting somebody and going, yeah, really nice to meet you, but your legs are like this, and they're going, I don't buy it. And it's unconscious, right? So, the way your feet are standing also expresses a lot. So are you open or are you closed? Be thinking about that. Your hands as well, if you're, I'm so relaxed today. Not so much around. So, your hands really express a lot. And it actually, when you open your hands, you actually help your whole system regulate. And this thing that you do in like yoga or meditation, the interesting thing, it actually connects to the anterior lobe of your brain. It calms you just by putting your fingers together. These tips of your fingers together actually sets in motion a relaxation to your brain. Right? So your limbic brain actually calms down. So it's interesting how much is in our body, and we're learning more and more about that. And you actually can change, and you can give yourself what's called a limbic revision. So, which is actually your brain is changing through time. So I love this photograph. Sex! And I chose this photograph because when you go, and you embark on that first sexual encounter, and okay, you've got to know the person. Prolong the getting to know the person so that you're actually going to feel calm and at ease, and you actually feel that you can pretty much tell them anything with your words so that you actually can reveal anything with your body. What happens, I think, is some people dive into sex too quickly, and then the body doesn't respond in the way that you imagine it would. So it's not uncommon for those of you that have your first sexual experience, after having been in a committed relationship, and now you're back and you have sex for the first time. Your brain is going through all of these things like, what are they going to think of my body? And do I really like this person, and what's going to happen after, and what does this mean if all those stories are going on. But if you've actually got to know the person really well, you are really open. You really do have that trust. You really have that connection that then is expressed in your body. But what happens for many couples, and I see this often, where they come in because there is erectile dysfunction, or the woman has a hard time getting turned on, and that's partly because they're stressed, right? They're not really ready. So the body is actually partnering with you to tell you, like, either it's maybe not a good match, or also that maybe you're moving too fast. So slow it down a little bit. If you get to know the person, obviously emotionally, and you have that attachment that builds, chances are it's going to be a longer-term relationship. So get to know them in your emotional connection, and your body's going to function better. You're going to have a longer relationship with them, probably. What's not to like about that? Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions? It's my favorite topic. Because I think it's something we don't talk about enough, and it is such an important part of our health, right? When you make love, you actually release dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, all of these things that our body needs to be healthy. And yet it's such a taboo subject. Nobody wants to talk about it, although you really want to know about it.
I enjoy talking about it.
Okay, good.
My curiosity would be, what is your beliefs around casual sex in the interim of finding something else, because it's really important to me.
Yeah.
So how do I put that aside, because I can differentiate them? So yeah, how do you?
What are your beliefs about it?
Well, I think there's a difference between sex and making love. So for me, I'm totally okay with going out and self-expressing, and I'm very open naturally. So I'd hate to think that I'm waiting to do that until I'm emotionally completely ready, because.
And it's not a gender thing. It can be men or women both ways. And you sound like you're a sexy body person, which just means that the stimulus and the sort of connection is what turns you on. And that's great. And the thing about it is that we are always our bodies are our biggest teachers, right? And so what's working for you, you keep going on. It's like, so yeah, no. Just counting on yourself, check in with your own body.
But the casual sex is the opposite of what you're saying up there.
Well, you know what?
Because they don't know each other, they're not going to be vulnerable because they don't feel safe. So
But it's
how
Depends what you want.
But it depends what the needs are, right? If you were, it's just that everybody has got unique needs, right?